Hi, this is Kylie Coo. Welcome to my studio. This is week 6 of the Spiral Scroll project. So I didn't yet get round to attaching last week's card, but I'm just going to go ahead and do this week's. And just looking here, this little scrap is slightly smaller than the others so far, but nevertheless I'm just going to go with it, having a look at both sides to see which one I want to make as the back and which one I want to make as the front, because this particular one got quite a bit of ink on both sides. So I was playing about with this ink pad a few days ago. It's Moonlight White. I've used it before for things and discovered that if I press it down, it's really juicy. So I want to do just kind of make a few marks, make a design with this, just using this pad, just thinking here what way up I want to put it, and I decide, yep, up about there. I'm going to make 3 marks, but I pushed down on it really hard, and in fact with that first one a bit harder than I'd intended. But when I was playing about with it the other day, I just liked the kind of shape that it made, and all I'm going to do is make 3 kind of blobs, for want of a better word, with these. So it's very much an abstract pattern. But I just liked the fact that I could use this ink pad in a different way. Now, I'm not saying all ink pads would be like this. This one I've had for a long time, and I've used it in different ways. It's quite versatile in some respects. So I'm going to take a paintbrush, but then I decide that brush is just too thick. I want a fine brush. Here we go, and all I'm going to do is to start pulling bits out of these. So last week we did a deep dive, and this week I was feeling like this was almost something under the sea or under a microscope, and just almost amoeba type little whatever. And yeah, it was just about doing something a little bit different. So I've said with these videos it's very much about just showing you my process, but there might be some tips, some techniques or whatever that you can just pick up from what I do. So you see I'm working quite slowly as usual, and that in itself there is quite effective. And the word that I chose for this week, you'll see me in a minute, I'll put it on, but again it was one that's just been in my mind kind of for most of the week, and I think it fitted well with what I was doing here, just in trying to use things in different ways. Here I am, I'm just trying to pick up some of that excess ink because I don't want to put something down on it and flatten it because it would likely spread out completely. So I just want to take a bit of the excess off here, because otherwise I know it's going to take an absolute age to dry. So I'm just lifting it off with the paintbrush, and by doing so that in itself creates some marks on the page. Then just kind of softening in some instances the hard edge, but I don't want to fill it in completely because I thought it gave a kind of translucent effect. So if this was some little creature under the microscope or in the sea or wherever, I wanted it to have that kind of translucent effect. Now just using some of the excess ink and just making some tiny splatters. Again, just picking up a bit more and just plopping it down, and I just spend a little bit of time doing that. But I decided this week that rather than stamping my word on, I wanted to use some of that excess ink again and actually just use a dip pen. Now I was going to use my bamboo dip pen, but as always seems to be the way in my studio, things go walkabout, so I've pulled out another one. This is a set that I have with all different nibs, so I'm just trying to pick up some of that And the word that I had decided to use this week is explore. And as I say, I thought that fitted well with just exploring different ways, you could say experimenting in different ways to use the ink pad in this case, or to use any supplies for that matter. So I'm just picking up a little bit at a time. It had kind of started to dry on the surface by this point because it took me so long, or I spent about 10 minutes looking for my bamboo dip pen and of course couldn't find it. Once I get that done, I just go over it again very quickly off camera. So I'm now going to heat or dry all that ink because I want to move on and use colour pencils. Now these are all polychromos and I'll tell you the colours of each one as I go along. So most of them are blues, but I do have one that is in sepia. Surprise, surprise, one of my favourite colours. So this first one I'm using is dark indigo. And what I'm going to do is to use the colour pencils in a way, if you've watched previous weeks, you would see me using the Stabilo All to kind of create a shadow effect. What I'm doing this week is to use colour pencils. I love to use colour pencils in mixed media, and I'm just doing a kind of hard shadow effect here, but you will see me shortly starting to not so much pull it out a bit, because unlike the Stabilo it can't be pulled out in the same way, but I can use a slightly different effect just to create that. So the colouring will go on for a few minutes. I don't think there's an awful lot to say about it, so I will put a little bit of music on, just doing the hard line to begin with, then a slightly lighter line, and then what I'll do is a bit of a kind of scumble effect with it to bring in different colours. So I really liked the effects that I was able to create with the pencils, obviously mainly in kind of blue shades, the Payne's grey and the sepia, which I mainly used towards the edges, but I loved those little bits of turquoise that were popping out, and the fact that when I went over the white, you could just get a little bit of the colour as well. So here I am just using the Payne's grey here just to outline very sketchily and also not too heavily, just round about the kind of shape where it almost then becomes translucent. So this was all about just kind of adding depth to the piece by using those different colours. It makes everything just stand out that little bit more. And I love working with colour pencils, and it's one of those things that if you're in a situation or a place, for example, where you don't want wet media, you know, if you've got a few pencils on you, you can really just sit and create to your heart's content. So it's even a good one if you like to, you know, cosy in to watch some TV of an evening but don't want to have wet medium around you, then this is a good thing to do. And it was one of the reasons I started to do the doodling on the back of the cards, so I would have something to do if watching TV, although to be honest I need to go back to that because, you know, I'd left it for a few weeks until I saw how the cards were going to fit together. So I'll just, you know, finish off a little bit more here just about at the end, and I will go round the word just in a little bit, just with a little bit of pencil just to make it stand out a bit more. So I think I will be back up to speed, so to speak, back on schedule with all the weekly videos by the end of next weekend. So next week I'll have a video out kind of midweek, and then I should have one out at the weekend, and that should bring us back on course. And then I'll get back to just putting up one of these a week and maybe get some other videos up with different things, just depending on how time allows. You'll see here I'm just going around those little, whatever you might want to call them, tentacles or something of that sort. Again, just a little bit of a shadow effect, and it helps them stand out just a little bit. So if you're doing this, I would encourage you to explore, and of course you can use these techniques in any sort of mixed media. It doesn't have to be on a scroll of this sort. There we go, just doing a little kind of scumble effect mainly around about the word, just to help it stand out a little bit more. And sometimes using a pencil like a Payne's grey or even the dark indigo, it's just a little bit more forgiving sometimes than using a straight black, and just gives it a little bit of a look, different look for a change. And I love the way there's a torn effect of the paper along the bottom there with the deep colours of the ink. I think that just helps it stand out as well. So you'll see there the little bits of turquoise. Really love that colour. Yeah, so an easy card, but I'm quite happy with it. So thanks ever so much for watching. Do join me again next time. Bye for now.